Hey,
How you doing, man?
good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries, man. It's good to have you. I'm just gonna check on Jordan, make sure he's cool.
Cool. So this is a father-son podcast.
Yeah, it's actually Jordan. I mean, we have this three of us, right? So Jordan, I don't. Do you know Travis?
I don't know Travis.
So that's my younger son,
Okay.
and so the three of us do it, but only two of us aren't together. So it's almost always me because I don't know. I'm organized and always like on top of it and
Right.
have the time, and then Jordan or Travis jump on depending upon who the guest is, and we kind of do it like that.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to it.
It's
Justin, what's up, dude?
Jordan, what's up, man?
Not much, man. What's happening with you?
All good. Staying busy. I just did a video breakdown. I think it's going to be hysterical. I just did a video breakdown on Fauci's throw.
Oh, yeah?
I'm
Nice.
like, someone asked me to do it as a joke, and I'm like, you know what? I think it'd be hysterical.
That's
But
Yeah.
I actually teach, I'm teaching about throwing mechanics,
yeah.
but while breaking down Fauci,
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's the stuff. That's the stuff that catches on. That's stuff that like kind of goes a little viral.
Yeah, you could literally break down like all the bad celebrity throws in the past and just like have that as like a little segment.
That's actually genius, man.
Yeah.
That's actually
Good
genius.
stuff.
You guys are killing it. You guys are super busy.
Yeah, we're doing all right. I got thrown out of Roosevelt Park yesterday though. In
Really?
New Rochelle.
How many kids did you have?
Nah, man, no, like 3 kids. And like it just Roosevelt Park like backs up to a lot of houses. So the people just complained, and so the Parks Department was like, all right, there can be no recreation sports at all in that park. So it is what it is. But yeah, there's a million fields, and there's a million places to go and do that
Wait,
stuff. So.
They said you were causing like a little ruckus?
No, they the people that just that live around there just don't like that people are in the park, and like it's not always me, but like I know like baseball kids will hit into the fence, lacrosse players will throw the ball into the fence, soccer players will hit, and they just for whatever reason, man, they don't like kids in the park, and so they every day they cause a problem for the Parks Department, and the Parks Department was just like, all right, this is too much of a headache. We're just gonna.
Is it a public park, Jay?
Yeah.
That's crazy then that they could do that.
Yeah, it is.
It's part of the public.
Yeah, the guy just causes a pretty big thing, but it's neither here nor there. It's not a big deal.
What about the high school?
The high school is that they still got chains on the fields. I went to Sycamore. It's the Sycamore field is like a baseball field. They've got like a backstop there, so I went there. No one bothers me. So.
Did you go in Scarsdale, Sycamore?
No, I don't know where that is.
I thought because there's a Sycamore field in Scarsdale that I use. Sometimes
I use Boulder Brook in Scarsdale. No one really bothers me there, or even Quaker Ridge's fields. They've got a good field.
That's a good one. They're always. By the way, yeah, Quaker Ridge is a great one. They don't really check.
No, man, no one's really over there. Yeah, I feel like that's everybody that's like you and me, and doing lessons and all that stuff is just like it's like a underground like what field is open like.
No, you gotta just figure. You just gotta pick and choose and kind of like you're right. You're 100% right. It is like a underground society kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. No, it is. Like I posted a video of me working out with some kids, and like a buddy who coaches at Rhinebeck like texted me. He's like, "Where are you? Is that can I use that?" And I'm like, I really don't need to give up my spot because I don't want to even like tell him where I am because I don't want him coming with his kids and like blowing up my spot. So I'm like, yeah, it's in New Rochelle. Like it's far. Yeah. You shouldn't come here. Don't come
practice
here.
around.
Yeah, don't come here. Just try to find your own spot.
I understand if you have like 20 kids, but like if
right.
it's one-on-one, come on, or even just like 3 kids. What's the big deal?
Yeah,
and it's in the middle of the day. It's not like you're doing it 10 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But whatever, you gotta just improvise and move on, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, hey, listen. So we're happy to have you on. You know, as I mentioned, as we were talking, getting ready to do this interview, generally we have on here the kind of older athletes, elite athletes. Yesterday we interviewed a girl who's a Gatorade Player of the Year in track and field in high school. We've had people that are going to WNBA, kind of that, so we can get a picture of what they do, what makes them special. What are the routines, what are the strategies that they use to kind of set themselves and get themselves to that level. And we're hoping that our audience listens and takes some of that away and be able to apply it to their own game and their own life to become, that level, that elite level of athlete. And so you have a little different perspective because of, you're working with the little guys and girls. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started? And then we've got to go into a lot of questions about what you're doing with the little ones, and some of the same things that we're doing, trying to get the message to the kids. You're actually teaching those kids.
So I appreciate you both having me. I'm flattered. It's great, and I love what you guys are doing. So I appreciate it very much. So yeah, basically, I was a student at New Rochelle High School. I was a decent at best baseball player for just as a freshman. I barely made the freshman baseball team. Always loved playing baseball. I have a beautiful, gorgeous field right up the street from where I live. I fell in love with the game because I heard the crack of the bat every morning, and on the weekends I met some of the coaches. They were so great to me. So I really just fell in love with the game because of that, I must say, the first and foremost. I ended up trying out, for my junior varsity baseball team because of my passion. I just love playing baseball, just like a lot of kids across the country, which is nothing unique. But I actually ironically got cut from my JV team as a 10th grader, which I'm sure you both can attest. When you're at that level for JV, it's kind of like not an unofficial, but it's almost like the end of the road for an athlete. And again, we're talking high school here, which is almost like, I can't believe I'm saying this, like 12 years ago already. So long story short, I went up to the coach in the parking lot for the junior varsity baseball coach. I said, what can I do to get better? He thought I was going to punch him in the face. I think he literally thought I was going to punch him in the face. Like he was like shocked that I even went up to him in the parking lot the next day. He told me what I had to do. Long story short, I made the varsity team by the skin of my teeth. Worked my tail off. Had tremendous mentors, tremendous coaches along the way. Not even like private training, like something that you guys are involved with your company. But bottom line is great mentors, great coaches along the way, great parents. Made the varsity, played 2 years at Westchester Community College, led the conference in RBIs and doubles, had a great JUCO career. Ended up playing 2 years at Purchase College, a nice little school here in New York. And, was the captain, led the conference in RBIs again, was unfortunately career cut short due to injuries. But I always kind of got led back into the coaching game. I was fortunate enough to coach at Purchase College. I did some hitting coaching and outfield coaching with them, and it was a great experience. I always kind of knew that I was going to get into coaching. I just got into it a lot sooner than I thought. And I guess you could say, fast forward from 5-6 years ago, from just putting up some flyers in the neighborhood by being like the Pied Piper with kids on my block. It just formulated into a Westchester-based company called JustinTime Baseball, and it's really morphed more than just a baseball training business, but like a youth development program. And I really kind of honed in on that the last 2 years, I guess you could say. I'm really starting to learn a little bit about what my strengths are as a coach. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I just want to learn and get better and grow and help as many students and parents as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a great story. So with the kids you coach now, what age group are you mainly focused on there?
So Gary, I coach kids as young as 4 years old.
Wow.
And we're learning gross motor skills. Again, it's not just here's a ball, go play. And I know Jordan's very familiar with this, and he's a phenomenal teacher, phenomenal. It's like gross motor skills, locomotor skills, spatial awareness, empathetic learning, just different aspects. Again, bigger than just here's how you catch a ball, but more detail oriented. That's where the youth development part comes into play. So that age, and then about a year ago, I got a phone call from a gentleman who's like, listen, I want to work on my swing. I said, oh, great. How old are you? He goes, 61. So I work with kids as young as 4, and I work with kids that are 61. I guess I'm almost like a chameleon, but the real core age bracket is 4 to 14, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah. And there must be, a wide range of difference in how you approach that, from 4 years old, because we've coached, Jordan and I both, I've done a lot of it, but I coached high school wrestling for 17 years. Prior to that, I've coached youth wrestling, and I coach youth football and lacrosse. And a 4-year-old, I don't think I've even coached 4-year-olds, but even a 3rd grader or 4th grader versus a 14-year-old, completely different skill set for a coach on how you approach it. So you must be very diversified in how you approach those things.
Can I say I'm glad you brought that up. Sometimes I treat a 4-year-old the same as I would treat a 13-year-old. Now, I don't say that as far as like yelling, and which I try to pride myself on never yelling at a student. But what I mean by that is like empathy. Like if you talk to them like a baby, I think it's a detriment. So sometimes I really try to get eye level, literally like on a knee, and get eye level and talk to them like I talk to anybody else. And I think that's been a huge advantage in my company. And I think that the students really respond to that.
Yeah, I can see that. And what I was referring to is more just the attention that they'll give. 4-year-old, you got to make it more games and make it more fun. And the older ones, you can be a little bit more structured and a little bit more have higher expectations of what they can deliver for you. So I think what you're doing is perfect, and that's what I meant.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Yeah, it's definitely different levels. And as far as like, I just put up something on my Twitter the other day, like as you get older, and I'm sure obviously both of you are tremendous coaches and managers, and you understand this point. I'm almost, as you get up the scale in age, you almost become more of a facilitator. Obviously still teaching, but facilitating while teaching, as opposed to jumping in and getting hands-on with like a 7-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Justin, I mean, we met at we were met in a grad school class in Manhattanville, physical education, and obviously it sounds like that. I don't know how many years ago. It was like 2 or 3 years ago, but it sounds like that has really impacted at least your younger age demographic, how you kind of go about handling that, because all the things that you mentioned, spatial awareness and fine motor skills and all that stuff, really goes back to kind of the stuff that we were learning as a PE teacher.
Absolutely. I mean, this degree has really, and I'm at the finish line, I'm getting there. This degree has been phenomenal as far as like the jargon, I guess you could say, the jargon on how I speak to a 6-year-old, or how I talk to a 10-year-old, what to look for, how to assess. Assessing, I think, is a huge part of coaching. Like assessing, not necessarily like, oh, this kid has a great arm, but assessing like, wow, like I love the way he made that adjustment. He's actually understanding what I'm teaching him, like mini goals and mini assessments. I think something that this degree taught me is how to do that, and also more of the jargon and different ways of displaying the message.
Yeah, for sure.
Justin, so when I think about what you do and, other people who are doing, coaching with young kids, I'm an older guy, right? I go back to when I was their age, we had none of that. We had Little League or we had football, but we didn't. Most of it was we played in the street, we played with our friends, we made up as we went along, and then you see a lot of stuff where you have coaches coaching young kids, and it's almost like almost sounds nothing like what you're doing. It sounds more like you're just trying to develop this pure talent, and they get a little older and they start overworking these kids, and they start putting stretches and pressures on them, and it seems like you're doing more. Yeah, of course, you're teaching them a sport that you love, but one thing, you're teaching them to love the sport, number one, and number two, you're teaching them a little bit more about just the, like you said, fine motor skills, how to be an athlete, and maybe even how to be a teammate and a person, other than just developing this pitching arm that's going to take them to the majors. You know what I mean? Am I getting it right?
100%. I mean, like, for me, it's like, yeah, is it great to work with a stud who's, going to play even, I'm telling you, even as high as high school. I mean, there are a lot of kids that I'm working with that will not play high school baseball or will not even play modified baseball.
Right.
So the mini successes along the way and the development of children's minds and physical ability and mini victories. I know I'm being repetitive, but that development to me is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and to be a mentor, because I'm sure you I know you deal with the same scenarios. Like, there are scenarios at home for these kids that sometimes they don't have the luxury of having that parent figure or whatever, or relative around often. And if I can make that impact, I think that's why we all kind of get into this, not just to win ball games, but
not for the money.
We're a leader. Yeah.
It's certainly not for the money. We do it because I think most of us just take pride in seeing a development, whether it's from a kid who can't chew gum and walk at the same time, and he becomes the 10th guy on the bench, or he becomes a backup wrestler on a wrestling team, or taking that guy who is athletically gifted, he's a stud, and you get him to that championship, and he wins that championship, he wins that state title. Either way, it's that reward of helping them grow. Right?
I think, I just to jump in real quick. I think that's like when you're talking about, setting those like those micro goals and stuff like that. That's why that stuff's so important, is because when you find out those micro goals, right, and you know exactly what the kind of kid wants out of you, and we're here to serve, right? We're here to help them achieve whatever they want to achieve. And when you get that really serious athlete that comes in and looks at me and is just like, Coach, I want to get recruited by top college. Like, that his goals are going to be different than the kid's just like, I just want to be able to like play with my friends and have a good time and feel confident when I go out there that like I can build some success and my friends will kind of like, I'll be able to kind of impress my friends. The goals are completely different, so that we can kind of alter our ability as coaches to achieve those things. And like you said, you're a chameleon. Like that's being able to adapt and change your teaching style student to student, I think is maybe one of the top qualities of coaches, being able to coach different kids in different levels. And you do an awesome job with it. We've been in the same circle now for a little while, and I've seen you work, and you do a phenomenal job with it. But how
ditto.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of more of a rant, but I guess my question was coming out of that was just how is your approach with kind of, and it's easier to coach the guys who come in with a plan, but how do you kind of get the plan or get the goals out of the younger kids that are maybe just there to like try it out?
It's a great question. So when I teach and now I'm scaling my company, JustinTime Baseball, into having other instructors, I am now starting to develop and formulate not a rigid outline, but kind of a guideline on what I expect my instructors and what I expect of myself to give to a student. And some of them are the setup, physically, like physical, mechanical adjustments to a player as far as their setup, where their hands are, where their feet are, different cue words that you should be implementing to the students. Like, for example, to throw a ball, I say scarecrow, so they're emphasizing getting those hands back and being in the right throwing position. Or, when they're catching a ball and they're having their hands above their eyes, high five the sky. So what ties into your question is if they can grasp that message and get, I know there's a lot of not corny, but there's a lot of memes or messages out there that say get 1% better. If they get that one or two of those cues and improve on the next session, to me that's a victory. Like, to me, that's like I did my job as a coach and in my company, that you got better. Like, you improved and you understood that. Not necessarily you hit, 2 home runs next game, but you understood that concept. If you focus on development and mini victories with these kids, with youth athletes and students, you're never going to go wrong. You're never going to go wrong. I don't know if that answers your question, but
no.
Mini victories. That's my big thing. And again, there's some players where it's like, look, like, and this is where the assessment part comes in. And I know you know this as well or better than anybody. Certain students, you have different expectations, and you should set those expectations. By the way, I think students like that. Like, you should, like, to little Johnny that's never swung a bat. Next week, I expect you to know how to set up in the box. Maybe not. I don't expect you to hit a home run, but I expect you to know how to set up in the box and understand some of these cues, because I expect you to practice it in between our sessions. Or Johnny, who's a stud, or maybe not Johnny. I keep using Johnny. Phil, who's a stud. Hey, I want to see you working more middle, left, center next round. Like, assessing and adjusting is what is the difference for a coach, my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said, I actually had posted on social media a couple weeks ago a video, I don't know if you saw it, of the dominoes, right? So it was this guy, it was about physics, but this guy had a little domino probably the size of my thumbnail, right? And he couldn't have weighed maybe a couple ounces. And he had it set up with 9 other dominoes. And the little domino fell and hit the next domino. Every domino was 1.5 times the size of the next one. And if he did 13 dominoes, he would knock down the Empire State Building. Like, so it's like you said, these little teeny victories, these little teeny lessons along the way build something great. And the fact that you're teaching that now at a young age is so important. I just wanted to add that in there. So because I think
I have a funny story. I have a crazy story. It's really not a long story. It's maybe a minute long. But bottom line is, I had a student about 4 years ago. This is what my mission statement is about right here in this story, and this could apply to any coach that's listening, any coach. Long story short, I'm at a game watching one of my students, which I always try to do that. I always try to watch my students. I had one young boy, right, that was sitting on the side in his uniform with 2 casts on his legs. He has, from what I found out, he had cerebral palsy. The mother asked me to work with his son because he's playing Little League baseball at 10 years old with cerebral palsy. The fact that he's even doing that and could, barely run is unbelievable to me. And the mother called me and said, "Look, I heard about you, JustinTime Baseball. I'd love for you to work with my son." Fast forward, I do practice with him. Kid hasn't touched the ball in 4 weeks. 5th week, he starts fouling the ball off. The championship game, he hasn't touched the ball all season. He got an RBI ground out to the pitcher, and the mother was crying in happiness. That's why I got into, and that's why we're all into the coaching game. And that's what it's all about, the development and those little moments to help the kid. The kid's not going to play high school ball. He's probably not even going to play modified ball. But the fact that little victory, to me, that's what it's all about. Well,
yeah, and that little victory, that great if he plays another game, or if he doesn't, that victory still stays with him, and he can apply that what I tried, I failed, I kept trying, I kept knocking down those little dominoes, and then eventually I found the success And, you know, whether it's baseball or if it's anything else in life, like that's just, I always say that I use athletics, specifically lacrosse, but, you know, any kind of athletics as a vessel to teach life lessons.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's exactly what you did, right? You just taught him how to overcome adversity, how to practice, how to become 1% better, how to, you know, make micro goals and find success. And then that's a lesson that he can just take outside of baseball, outside of sports, and put it towards anything else that he wants, and you know, find some success there. And that's an awesome thing that, like, you know, like you said, that's what you get into coaching for those light bulbs to go off.
I love
The
that.
other nice thing about working with these young guys, Justin, I mean, or from what I see, right, is we're always talking to kids about, and I mean kids, mostly high school, even college, you know, process over outcome. And when these kids are in your program and they're learning a process now, two things. One, they're learning to love the game. That means they're learning to love the process, right? And the process is more important than the outcome. As you know, you do everything right. You get in that batter's box. You have your hands in the right position. You've got your feet in the right position. You swing away perfectly. You hit that ball as hard as you can, and it goes to the shortstop, and he picks up, and you're out. You can't control that. You did everything right. You had a victory in that batter's box. You did the right thing.
Well said.
It happens. But if you love the process of the game, the outcome will take care of itself. And I think even without maybe saying those exact words to kids, you're teaching those lessons by doing what you're doing.
Amen. Totally. Absolutely. Absolutely.
One thing I'm curious about with the young kids, because I see this, we have, even though I'm a high school coach, we have the youth programs in our high school. So I see them after we come from practice. And I'm sure you get some of this, right? Parental involvement. It's parental involvement is that ball, right? It's got all of it in it. It's got great parental involvement. You've got sometimes too much parental involvement. You got not enough parental involvement. You have sometimes, hey, Justin's a great place for me to leave my 4-year-old for 3 hours when I go shopping, and it's like babysitting. You know, how do you deal with parents and what, you know, especially with young kids? When we get to high school, we don't have to deal with them as much, but you parents are a lot of the, you know, what you do there.
It's a great question also. So two parts to that. One, a part of my company also last year, it really took a change, obviously, due to this whole pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But last year I was very fortunate to be asked to speak at 6 different little leagues in Westchester to their parent coaches. So I have spoke to Ardsley, Scarsdale, New Rochelle, Eastchester. It was really cool. It was a very cool experience. Long story short, the reason why I'm saying that is the first thing I say to them is, listen, we need parent coaches. And I know you're talking about just parents in general with like their
students. But that's important too, yeah.
So I say to them, like, look, we need parent coaches. There's such a bad like rep as far as, oh, get rid of all parents, get rid of all parent coaches. I actually think we need them. Like, I believe they are the underbelly of youth, especially youth baseball, because a lot of these coaches, these parents are like, they're coming off the train. They just want to help out their son's team. Now, again, do a lot of them go over the line and take advantage of their title? 100%. But that's like, you know, any volunteer situation in any organization, not just sports. But I believe parents are pivotal to youth sports. I do. I think it's important. I think if there's a way we could give them tools, and that's kind of why I thought of the idea of helping parent coaches. I thought of the idea of bringing in a bunch of parents in almost like a conference, and I was actually fortunate enough to bring in like over 65 coaches last year in one setting from different towns all over Westchester. It was a really cool thing. But the bottom line is, I say to every single one of them, you are vital to the success of your kids and other kids. It's not all quote unquote professionals. We need the parents. So to answer your question, I think it's important to have them aboard. Number 2, I've been very fortunate to have, I think if you show them respect and you're honest with them, and you're honest with your students and the parents, it will work itself out. You know, I'm sure, Jordan, you when you're working with lacrosse students and their parents, like, being honest sets you free. Just like being honest, being upfront, being empathetic, you know, having an understanding and a relationship. I think there's really shouldn't be a problem. Meaning, like, yeah, there's always going to be those parents that are, you know, out there. Obviously, there's helicopter parents, but I think if you look within yourself and really take assessment and be like, maybe there is something I'm doing wrong, or maybe there is something I could do better. I think it works itself out. And if they're really a rotten, I guess I don't want to say rotten, but if it's not a good relationship, then you just move on. But ultimately, if you're doing your part, I think parents are vital in the youth coaching process. And you know, I want them involved. So when they're not with me during that one session, or my instructors, they're keen on what's going on and how they can help their kids. Like, bringing them along in the process, I think it helps everybody.
I couldn't agree more. I think you pretty much nailed everything. I got my start kind of when I really started taking this coaching thing seriously. I was coaching 5th and 6th modified 5th and 6th travel Scarsdale lacrosse, and I was the like paid, you know, professional coach. I was like 23 years old or whatever, and I didn't really, you know, that was my first coaching gig, so I don't know if I could consider myself a professional coach, but they're paying me. But if I didn't have the parents around me, you can't do it all by yourself, because you want to give attention to so many different kids, and there's just not enough of you to go around. But I completely agree with you. What you said is you have to educate the parents, because you are the person, you are the coach, you are the person that understands the sport. More likely than not, you're the person that understands that every kid is different. So like, maybe they know how to talk to their kid, but if they're helping the team, they need to be able to talk to, you know, 20 different kids. And understanding that and teaching them that, I think is super important. And then the second thing you said was being honest and being upfront with them. Like, and I know my dad can attest this, and we go back and forth all the time about how to handle certain situations as coaches. It's great to kind of have him as a mentor, someone that I can like go to and bounce things off of. But we talk about the parent meeting at the beginning of the year. Like, every level of every youth sport should have some form of parent meeting at the beginning of the year that lets everybody know that this is my expectations. This is how I'm going to coach. This is our goals, right? We are a team where everyone gets equal play, or as you get older, you know, we're a team that we want everyone to have fun, but we are going, you know, the play might not be equal, so that everything that your cards are on the table, and that the parents can kind of see, like, all right, this is what he wants, and then they can make their decision. This is for me, or this is for my son or daughter, or this isn't. But at least everything's out there on the table. So 2 weeks from now, they come back to you and they're like, well, why isn't this? Well, you know, we laid it out this way. We explained it to you. And hopefully you can help us, you know, enforce those lessons, because that's, you know, as long if you're telling them one thing on the field and then they go home and they're getting the complete opposite instruction from their parents, or you know, ideals from their parents, you're never going to get anywhere. You need to make sure that everyone's on the same page, having the same, you know, message going forward. And I think, like you said, being honest and being upfront right from the beginning, and getting those parents on your team and being a unit and being a community, I think is super, super important.
I'll just jump in real quick, because you know, this is something, you know, again, I've dealt with this a long time, being a lot older than you two guys. I think you're both right. Especially part the setting the expectations early and having that conversation, having that, you know, that meeting with them and letting them know exactly what you're about is so important. The other thing though is it does put pressure, and I agree, Justin, it is needed, especially like in baseball and some of those sports. It is needed, but it does put pressure on you guys, especially when you get into, like, you're coaching kids more about technique than you are in a competitive standpoint. You're not really playing maybe games and travel. It puts pressure on the coaches, because you have to now not only teach their kids, but you have to teach them that, number one, it's not all about you and your kid. Number two, don't be so hard on your kid. Number two, don't be too easy on your kid or give your kid too many things. So it's a lot of pressure. And I think the kind of the conversations that you had in the Little League, we need more of that. We need more of coaches educating other coaches on how to do things the right way. And then we can bring these coaches, these parents on. But they don't know. They're untrained, right? They're getting off the train, they're taking off their tie, and they're jumping on the field. They don't have the expertise that we have. We need to teach them. And there should be some organization that really focuses, it probably is, that focuses on really how to teach parents how to coach their kids. So I'm glad you're doing that, and it's a great answer. And we really spent a lot of time on that one question.
It's really it's prevalent. I mean, it's not just baseball, obviously lacrosse and other sport. It's across the country. Every that is like the big issue right now, I believe, is like they're weaning parents out of youth sports. So it's current. I mean, it's really at the forefront right now, is they're trying to really wean parents out. And I think that's a mistake.
When I started coaching at the high school, I coached the high school before Jordan was even in high school. And I coached for years. And then somewhere along the way, they said, no more parent coaches in the high school. I was already in, so I was grandfathered in, and they let me stay. But there was a point where they said, no more parent coaches. And it's tough because teachers teach all day long. Sometimes they don't want to, spend the extra time. They're burnt out. We know they don't get paid anything. So parents are the only ones who are willing to do it. And if you're weeding them out, what are you left with? You're left with no coaches for your kids to play, and that's not an answer to anything. So
Absolutely.
So a couple of other questions that I had for you before we kind of let this go. Like we talked about earlier, you may be teaching a lot of life skills to these kids as you're teaching baseball. And we always say, sports is a reflection of life, or life is a reflection of sports. Do you do that? Is it a part of the baseball process, or do you have a certain time that you talk to them about things that are kind of life things, or maybe just more mentality things other than baseball that they pick up through that message?
Yeah, yes, I would say that it's an organic flow. When there's when there's a moment to teach, and it has a tie-in to life, or if it's a current situation going on in the world. Obviously, this COVID situation is number one right now, unfortunately. But, I think it's kind of organic. And I think it's also, again, going back to the assessment part. I may know a student that I work with, or clientele that I work with, that like they may have a little bit higher anxiety. I know that sounds like ridiculous, but like when I'm on my way to a session, or I tell the coach, almost like an IEP form for a student, it's the same principle. Like maybe it's important to kind of talk about that a little bit, and that will help their performance, and get it out in the open and talk about life. How is your day at school? How are you doing? How are you doing in math class? What'd you have for lunch today? Now I know that ties in. I don't really have a script per se.
Yeah.
But I think it just organically happens, and they parlay with each other during a practice. Sometimes it's best to not talk about that. Sometimes it's more important than ever to take your mind off baseball, even in a baseball setting.
And what kind of fun things do you do with it? What kind of activities do you do around baseball that maybe are not strictly baseball to keep these kids kind of excited? Because I know that when I sit down with my youth program, again, I'm not running it, but I kind of oversee, because I'm the high school coach. We're always talking about how do we keep the little ones really engaged.
Sure.
And then we have a guy. I don't know if you guys know Jamie Block. You know Jamie Block?
Sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Jamie's an athletic director at, I'm drawing a blank on the school, but in Westchester area. And he does a phenomenal job, because he's been doing it for years. He does a phenomenal job of kind of putting all these games that are related to what wrestling, and he incorporates them in there. And the kids have so much fun with it. They just love coming to practice. And our numbers have grown from 25 to 60 And you know, so I just wonder what you did around that area.
So it's a great question, and it's a long answer, but I always believe, and this applies to any sport, and I know Jordan and I have talked about this. Yes, you got to keep it fun. I think to keep it fun, you have to instill success, competition, but there's got to be competition within competition. I mean, I'm always trying to compete. I mean, even if it's a matter of throwing a baseball in a bucket, literally, like, hey, I'll give you a baseball card if you could hit a line drive at the middle. Competition instills success, and also another thing, and this is the third pillar of fun. Less standing around, the better. I know that. I don't know if that kind of adds into it, but to keep the little ones having fun.
Absolutely.
When I go into a parent-coach meeting, I say, listen, there is no reason, okay, you don't even have to know anything about baseball. There is no reason why there should be 10 kids on a line when one kid is going to get a ground ball. There is no reason to do that. I don't care even if you're 4 years old. You could be a facilitator and kind of partner them up and keeping them moving. If they're 6, 7 years old, their stations are 2 minutes long and they're hustling to each station. So to me, that keeps it fun. If it's 10 kids in a line and one coach is hitting ground balls when 9 people are kicking dirt, it's not their fault that they're bored. It's actually your fault. So because they're bored. I mean, I would do the same thing if I were that age. I'd do it if I were 28, which I am. So like the bottom line is that keeps it more interesting. Fewer kids standing around. Competition always. Everything could be a competition. I always add in some prizes. For me, it's like I buy a ton of baseball cards. I buy a ton of gear. Even if it's just winning one baseball card, like kids love it, and that increases focus. The big part of it is it increases focus, and that's what you want out of your practices and out of your training sessions.
Absolutely. I always say, your focus is your future. And
love it.
I'll give you a cool one. You can do this. I saw you had a bat earlier. I show this, and you show this to the kids or the parents, right? I have a lacrosse stick here, and I just take it like this, and I show them that if you focus at the top where you're supposed to, you can balance this thing pretty well. But as soon as you move your focus to the bottom, not where it should be, you can try it with your baseball bat right now. You cannot focus it any longer. And, just to teach them a quick little lesson on the focus you talked about.
That's actually brilliant. That's fantastic.
I didn't invent it, but I stole it. And when I steal it, I share it.
Good artist copy, great artist steal.
Yeah. And so the other thing that I will mention to you is because we had a couple of guests on recently, and they both were wrestlers actually, but they both mentioned the same thing when we talked about how they develop and what made them better and special. And they both said to do things that are just make you a better athlete. So, whether it was, and I remember, I don't know if you know who Kyle Dake is, but Kyle Dake is a, world-class wrestler. He's one of the best ever. He won 4 national championships in 4 different weight classes in 4 years, like phenomenal. Anyway, he used to run this program in Westchester County, and he would have the kids doing ninja stuff, and you get little ninja stars, and they would do like backflips off the wall and just stuff to develop their overall athleticism.
Totally.
And that makes you a better athlete overall. So that's something I'm just sharing with you that I thought was cool that they said.
It's so great. I mean, you see The Last Dance. You saw Phil Jackson. I think I remember he took the team to do, was it Tai Chi?
Yeah.
Again, sometimes doing things like that are exactly what a training session or a team practice they need. That's to do not the sport that they're training in is actually exactly what they need.
Right.
So, absolutely. I try to mix in. I actually add in a lot of wiffle ball. I don't think a lot of kids play stick ball and wiffle ball. So something I've been doing lately, and I know it's still in the lines of baseball, but just play wiffle ball. That's
cool, man. It's cool. That's cool stuff.
Stick ball, Like some kids I know don't even know what stickball is.
Every sport should take it back to the grassroots at some point, especially with the young kids. In lacrosse, we call it 3x, and it's like you turn over a trash can, you pick up a tennis ball, you play 3-on-3, and the defensive team, one person hops in front of the goal, so it's kind of like 3-on-2, and then the goalie. and you both go back and forth, and like it's like the grassroots of lacrosse. It's forget all the X's and O's and the fun. It's just like go out there and play, and that's the thing with baseball, and every sport has their like, you know, dumbed down backyard version, and it's the most fun. Man, you can get, if you got the three of us right out here on a field playing wiffle ball, we'd have a blast. And so the kids obviously love it. And yeah, I think like there's so much attention to like the details and, you know, having the real equipment in your hand. Like take it down to the grassroots, just go back there and have fun with it. Some of my best
sessions, like you're so spot on. Some of my best sessions within my company is literally, I'm not even teaching them anything. Like what I said earlier in the podcast, like just facilitate, just have fun with them and facilitate. And that is actually teaching. Like that is teaching them.
Yeah,
for sure.
Teaching them without saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, man. So I love what you've been saying all throughout this podcast. I have one last question for you. And that is, what would your, you know, obviously you talk to these people all the time, but what's your message to young kids in general that are looking to get to that next level? Like what's the thing that you would say they should be focused on or working on or thinking about that'll take them to that next level?
Love it. So I think something that I didn't do as well, and this is why I'm so passionate about teaching it, and I didn't do this as well, and I really want to bring it to the youth, is really, and I'm talking baseball here, is really, you need to, it's a skill. It's as important or more important than hitting a home run. You have to learn how to control what you can control. You have to. Like anyone that I speak to, that is at a high success, and obviously with your podcast, you talk to tons of highly successful people. I guarantee you they're along those lines of just control what they can control and enjoy the process. It's a skill. It's not just like jargon. It's actually a skill to enjoy the game and understand that you need to just control what you can control. I think that is a huge skill, and all the top level, at least I could speak for baseball players, they look the same if they're 5 for 5 or 0 for 5, you know, in the batter's box. So that is a huge skill. And I think that's what I would say to students is that mental part. That's what I kind of missed in college. And you know, obviously if we all had to do something over again, we could change some things. I have no regrets, but something I would say to a younger generation, I always say it is, you got to focus on good, you know, what you can control. You can't focus on getting a hit, but you can focus on getting a great pitch and a great count and hitting it as hard as you can. That's controllable.
Yep.
So to me, focus on that, less on the outcome, and, you know, enjoy it, because all of a sudden you're not playing and all of a sudden you're doing something else and you're done. I mean, I'm done playing baseball. I'm now a golfer, I guess you could say, as far as athletics. I like playing golf. I love golf. Talk about a mental game. But I mean, I love coaching. I love leading. I love mentoring. I do love being an entrepreneur also. So I have the best of both worlds in both of them. So, but the bottom line is enjoy the process focus on what you can control. That's what I would tell my students.
Like we said earlier, process over outcome. And the other thing you said, which is important, is learning these things is a strategy. And life is not a talent game. Life is a strategy game. Now, when you have talent and you have strategy, you get elite athlete, right? That's when you get that special athlete. When they have talent and they put strategy together with it, boom, they're going to the top. So anyway, listen, we enjoyed having you on this podcast. You gave us some great stuff. Why don't you tell the audience how people can get in touch with you if they have kids who are interested in baseball and learning it the right way? Tell us how they can get in touch with you, Justin.
So again, I love this, but this was awesome. You clearly, you guys are top notch. So, you know, I'm getting on the Twitter game more, tweeting a lot. I love Twitter. There's a lot of great coaches and I'm tweeting a lot. It's just zero. It's actually, I put the 2-0, Coach JustinTime. On Instagram, you can go to JustinTime Baseball. On YouTube, you can go to Coach JustinTime. I've been posting a lot lately. And I think it's important for people like you, great mentors and coaches like both of you. It's important to use these tools, these social media tools, because you know, even when Jordan and I were playing, I didn't really have the access. We didn't really even as young as Jordan.
Yeah.
We were just kind of getting YouTube and just kind of getting, we didn't have Instagram, but like there's so many tools. And that's something I would also say is use the tools. These are free gifts to use.
Yeah,
and as
absolutely.
a mentor leader, I think it's our ethical duty to get the message out and help, you know, not even for a transactional point, just to get it out there. Like I know, Gary, you do an unbelievable job with that. You're always posting positivity. It's really
It's funny you bring up. I just did, and you just said it. I just did a mental minute on success leaves clues, and now you can find clues everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, podcast. These kids, if you want to get better, find out what the great ones are doing, listen, learn, and implement it. And you know, like you said, even when you guys were young, you didn't have those tools. When I was young, you know, we barely had a radio, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, success leaves clues. Look for the clues.
Totally. And I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I wish you luck. I really appreciate it. This is really fun.
Yeah, you too. And, you know, obviously we're all in the same community here, so we'll be in touch. And we're on the Instagram community. I see you all the time. I love your stuff. Keep posting it up there. Keep taking care of those kids. And we'll talk to you soon.
Ditto. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
All right, pal.
All right, Justin, man. Take care.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was different.
Honestly, I had like more fun on that one than I normally do on the other ones.
Yeah, well, one, you know them too, which makes it a little bit. And,
yeah, it was more conversational than some of the other ones.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't an interview. It was more of a conversation. But hey, this is our podcast. We do whatever we want.
Yeah, no, fuck yeah. Like, I mean, we're all three people that were very much on the same page with stuff. So it's like, you know, he says something and you just have another way to describe it or another story to tell that like that fits in. It was fun. It was fun to do those. And I think